Welcome back to Pork Chops, Rice, and Peaches. My name is Noah.
And I am Richard.
And today we've got a bit of a different episode for you, kind of following the same vein as the last one we recorded. Not on a specific movie, TV, video game, but on a topic.
Just the other day, and by just the other day I mean sometime before today, we were having a conversation where we asked ourselves, what makes something iconic? And it was a very interesting conversation that we started, but I don't think we ever finished.
No, I don't think we ever did.
I have since discovered that this is a conversation that's been had many times over the years.
Yeah.
And there's a lot that you can read on it. Everybody seems to have the same general idea of the definition of iconic.
Yeah.
But there are many unanswered questions because nobody comes to a conclusion on it.
Yeah. Very, very different conversations spanning all sorts of different sub-discussions, it seems. Because it's not just, you can't just say that something is iconic. There's many different things that could be considered iconic. It could be a symbol. It could be a work. It could be a sound. It doesn't have to, I mean, there's so many different things that can be considered iconic that the conversation takes so many different paths.
Well, so we asked ourselves the question, what makes something iconic? And the first answer that we came up with was, it is widely known.
It is, yes.
All right.
Yes.
Now, just this morning, then, I came up with a suggestion for something that's iconic, but it's very regional.
Okay.
And so, widely known begs the question,
yeah.
How wide?
How widely known? Does it have to be known by just a certain community?
Right.
Does it has to be recognizable outside of that community? And I think some things you'll look at and you'll say, oh, that's well known even outside of its community.
Yes.
But there's some things that are so well known within the niche that it exists in that you could also consider it iconic. So
yes,
what was your example?
Well, my example was the author Mike Reinko. Here's just one of his books I have on my counter, For the Love of Mike. This is a collection of his columns.
Okay.
Mike Reinko was a columnist first for the Chicago Daily News, then the Chicago Sun-Times, then the Chicago Tribune.
Okay.
And if you grew up in Chicago in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, everybody knew Mike Reinko.
Okay.
This man sold newspapers. His column was always on the inside of the first page or on page 3 so that you opened the first page and you were staring at it.
Okay.
And people bought the newspaper to see what Mike had to say about events in Chicago. His biggest target being Richard J. Daley.
Okay.
The 28-year mayor of Chicago. So Reinko, very well known in the greater Chicagoland area.
Okay.
He easily recognized, easily associated,
okay,
which were some of the things that we came up with as
true.
definitions of. But
so let's discuss some of those definitions when we
outside of the Chicago area.
I only recognize him because he's on your shelf.
Because you grew up with the books on the shelf.
Yeah, that's the only reason I even know the name. But yeah, let's talk about these. Let's talk about these what everyone seems to agree are parameters to make something iconic. We have widely recognized, right?
Yes.
What else do we have? What else are things that they have?
Easily associated.
Easily associated. All right.
Popular.
Obviously.
Not overdone.
Not overdone. Okay.
Now this was the list that you and I threw together on the dry erase calendar in the kitchen. All right. Is it nostalgic?
Ooh, that's a good one. That's a good one.
And is it rare?
That would go along with how its uniqueness.
Yes.
Does it stand out from a sea of...
Let me read a quote to you that I found. I don't know who this person is, Shaughnessy Farrow. They were writing on a website called Fast Company in 2014.
Okay.
All right. A word once reserved for symbols or religious images, an icon can now be pretty much anything easily recognizable, or anything deemed a little bit exciting if you start to read enough press releases. But the more we call every creation iconic, the less impact the word has. If every new tech product is an icon, how do we describe something that truly changed the tech world, like the iPod? If every new tall structure is an iconic piece of architecture, what do we call the instantly identifiable silhouette of the Eiffel Tower?
That's okay. That is fantastic.
So, that
is
is
a fantastic summarization.
It is, and it begs the question: is the term iconic overused?
It might be. You know, in today's day and age, there's so many things getting created. There's so many things hitting the mainstream that.
And does something being popular make it iconic? And I don't think popularity should be one of the definitions.
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think if something is iconic, it helps make something popular. I don't think popularity defines something being iconic.
No.
So, well, I mean, let's look at something like, okay, up here on the shelf, I grabbed a couple things today. We have a lightsaber, almost instantly recognizable as a symbol of Star Wars.
And for the past, how many years?
Yeah.
Since 1977,
yeah,
this has been a symbol of Star Wars.
How many people have, in other media, like non-Star Wars movies or TV shows, had a laser sword, a stock laser sword, and every time you look at it, you go, hey, it's a knockoff lightsaber.
Yeah.
I mean, the term lightsaber almost seems like that could be considered iconic as a symbol of Star Wars. You think Star Wars, what do you think of?
Lightsabers.
Lightsabers. It's one of the things that you instantly think of. There's a Pokeball. It's a instantly recognizable symbol of Pokemon. Even people who don't play the games or have never watched the TV show know what a Pokeball is. And I have a Legend of Zelda symbol. This one's probably the more niche of these examples, but I think it's still somewhat recognizable to people who aren't necessarily fans of Zelda. But
sure, but I wouldn't put that in the icon.
Oh no, I wouldn't.
Category.
I wouldn't.
And I don't even know what this monstrosity is.
Yeah, that's a Titanfall Titan. It's not iconic.
Okay.
It's not. I just needed to fill the space.
So,
otherwise, you're going to have a giant gaping hole right there.
Okay. So one
Good
of the
job.
things, thank you, I force pulled that down.
Yes.
One of the things
Obviously.
that something that came to mind is you were talking about that is I think it's safe to say that if a proper noun gets used in place of the common noun across the board, and in the United States, this is you'll recognize this. I think the item is iconic, such as how many people, when they say they want a soft drink, say, "Do you want a Coke?"
Okay.
They don't necessarily mean Coca-Cola.
Yeah.
They mean, "Do you want a soda?"
Okay.
Right? But they ask, "Do you want a Coke?" How many people ask for a Kleenex rather than
a
tissue?
Yeah.
I remember when Puffs came out, right? And nobody says, "Hey, you got a Puffs?" You know, that sounds like you're looking for a toke on someone's joint, you know? Not a Kleenex for blowing your nose. So I think that if we're going to look at something that has become iconic, then the proper noun supplanting the common noun probably is a good definition.
Okay. Now, the reason I think it's very important that I address this real quick. The reason I even had this in the first, like this idea for this topic in the first place, back when we first talked about this, was I was trying to piece together in terms of stories and like media what makes these franchises, these stories, these movies, these books, these TV shows so recognizable, so like the heavy power industry powerhouses that they are, things like Harry Potter, Star Wars, Marvel, all these different major franchises, and I was starting to piece together that they all have something that's instantly recognizable about them. There's something where when you see that, you instantly think of them. I mean, to this day, I cannot look at a pair of round glasses without thinking Harry Potter. I can't look at the lightning bolt scar and you know, that shape, that specific lightning bolt shape, and not think Harry Potter, lightsaber, Star Wars.
When I look at the round glasses,
yeah,
I think Radar O'Reilly Sherman Potter.
Okay.
All right. And I think of the submarine glasses. Mm-hmm. When I was on a boat, those of us who wore glasses were issued those round glasses because the safety masks, if you needed emergency air, the safety masks had to seal around them.
Okay.
And so we couldn't wear any other glasses if we wanted to have that safety seal. So I see round glasses, I think military.
Okay. You know, I think that's more of a personal experience that influences that.
Well, except that I grew up with MASH in its first run.
Yep.
And so, you know, is something iconic, is it because it's popular? If popularity wears off, does the iconic status disappear?
That's also a good question.
That's a very good question.
And does it vary from generation to generation? Because again, I think a lot of people my age would look at round glasses and think Harry Potter.
Yes. So then the question is it iconic? Your children and your grandchildren, will they look at round glasses and think of Harry Potter?
Don't know.
There's going to be a generation that says, Harry who?
Yeah. Yeah, eventually. That's weird to think about, but eventually there's going to be a generation that doesn't know what Harry Potter is.
I do not believe that the Harry Potter books should ever be taught as literature in a school. They are phenomenal, entertaining, well-written pulp fiction. And I think that if you look at the development and the progression of a writer, you see the maturity in Rowling's writing from book 1 through, you know, book. I really think the best of the series is book number 6.
Okay,
and I think that's where she regained the lighthearted touch of the first couple of books with the seriousness of the whole situation. It was just. Yeah. Maybe just because it was a refreshing change from book 5, which was just a downer.
Yeah.
But we digress.
We do digress.
Frequently.
So, very, very often. So, what are more iconic symbols that?
Well, okay, so
we should be discussing.
So here's something else to throw into the definition pool, and as we try to figure this out. 2 questions. One, what's the difference between an icon and a symbol? Okay.
Very true.
And then a very short YouTube video that I found yesterday, produced by a man named Sun Yu. It was 2018. I found it on his YouTube channel.
Okay.
And he was talking about iconic.
I'll link it in the description.
In terms of, if I can find it again, I'll link
we'll find it.
Marketability. And he was asking the question, can you take your product and make your product an icon? And this is pure marketing. And he said, in order to be able to be iconic, first, you need to have something that is distinct and memorable about your product.
Okay.
Something that people find unique and remember you for. The second thing is the distinction is highly relevant to the consumer or the customer. Thirdly, the item stays relevant over time and becomes recognizable for its distinctive relevance. And then longevity. You do all of those with longevity.
Okay. So I have a question.
Okay.
Because there's something in this room off camera that fits those parameters, but it could be considered either a symbol or, I guess, an icon, depending on who you ask.
Being that you're looking this way...
I'm not. It's not over there. It's not over there. It's actually right over there. There's a green and gold Packers flag hanging on the wall back there.
Yes, there is.
There's also a Chiefs flag hanging over there. I think we just labeled ourselves in terms of
I think
NFL.
my Bears
I don't know
flag
where your
got
Bears-
banished
yeah.
to the basement
I was
somewhere.
wondering where that
yeah.
went. Because there's 2 Chiefs flags on the wall now. It is
Yeah.
taking over. NFL symbols. Instantly recognizable. Insanely marketable.
Yes.
And a comparison I'll make real quick is any other offshoot any other football league. There was the XFL that started last year, and I was looking at these uniforms, these symbols that they have, and that was literally all I thought. These are symbols.
Yes.
They don't have a uniqueness. They don't have I don't know, they just don't have this X factor that made them unique enough. They all looked like the same person designed each and every one of them and then mass shipped them to the teams when this new league started.
Gotcha.
Whereas literally in the difference between the Chiefs symbol and the Green Bay Packers symbol, the difference is apparent. One of them is an arrowhead. It's got offset letters. It's got a different color pattern. The Green Bay Packers one is just a simple G with a different font. You know, it's not even all the way around. It's got a different color scheme. You can tell that these are 2 different symbols made at 2 different times, but yet to each of the individual fan bases, these are instantly recognizable and, dare I say, iconic symbols even throughout the NFL, especially given 2 of the oldest teams in the sport. You know, the 2 that went to the first Super Bowl. These
you would never argue that the Cleveland Browns was iconic.
Yeah.
Unless they are the.
It's literally just a helmet.
So Catherine Tobin, writing in the Portsmouth Point in 2013, said, "A person or thing regarded as a representative symbol or worthy of veneration." Now, there's an interesting angle to iconic, and where it starts, the origin, I believe, goes back to the 1500s, where iconic it was first used in reference to religious paintings of Christ.
Okay. Well, yeah.
Okay.
As an
Right.
icon.
Yeah.
Going back to
Okay.
your earlier definition of religious symbolism.
And religious symbolism was really where this concept, I believe, of iconic
What
started.
an icon is.
And it goes back to a Greek word, icon or something, but it basically means a picture.
Yeah.
Okay, so it means a picture, and then but the idea of veneration, right? Worthy of respect, worthy of being elevated above everything else. And I think that maybe that might be the next level that we go to in order to define whether or not something is iconic. Even if it's a symbol. Such everybody knows the Superman symbol.
Yeah.
And of the entire comic universe,
there's nothing more recognizable than the Superman symbol. The only thing that comes close
Maybe
is
Batman.
Batman.
Yeah.
Maybe Batman.
Batman. Yes.
But again, both of those fit into all the previous definitions. They're instantly recognizable.
Right.
Everyone, whether or not you're a comic book fan or not, and this was a great example that you brought up in terms of Superman, because they are instantly recognizable.
Right.
I think you could show almost anybody on planet Earth the Superman symbol,
and they would know who it is.
and they would know who it is.
Yes. All right.
Same with Batman. It's insanely marketable. You slap the Superman logo on anything and you can sell it. Same with Batman.
Right.
Yeah, and it stands for something. It has meaning associated with it, which I think is another thing we haven't talked about. There's a meaning
associated to it. Well, except for the brand name substitution. I mean, there's no meaning behind Kleenex other than you blow your nose, right? But is there meaning behind it? Superman stands for
truth, justice, the American way, hope. It's supposed to be a symbol of hope.
Regardless of all of the iterations of Superman that have come in the last 30 years where, Superman's evil, Superman has a twin brother, Superman, all that other stuff.
The Zack Snyder Superman snaps people's necks.
Yeah, So there's that. The if you were to talk literature, if I ask you, what is a novel or a play or a poem that you would consider iconic?
Three Musketeers.
Three Musketeers.
Right off the top of the bat.
Okay.
A lot of people know what Three Musketeers are. Dracula.
Okay. Although
Romeo and Juliet.
I would argue. I would argue. I love
The
Shakespeare.
lit teacher.
I hate Romeo and Juliet.
We'll have to have that discussion someday.
The see, and I would think for me, the Count of Monte Cristo comes to mind before
Really?
Three Musketeers.
Because-
Although, in terms of what people know, Three Musketeers is probably better known.
Probably, yeah. That's why I brought it up.
Right,
So
okay.
it's like, okay,
Yeah.
things that more people know about Three Musketeers. I mean, you get girls online taking pictures of the three of them in a selfie and going, oh, look, we're the Three Musketeers.
Yeah.
I mean,
Nobody
that's how
takes a
widely
selfie
known-
and says,
Yes,
"I'm the Count of
Monte Cristo. Fear me.
You got me.
I will ruin your life by spamming dislikes in the comment section. No, you don't. You gonna breathe over there?
We'll get this together here in just a moment.
There's a large dead period in my audio file where you are just dying.
Talk. Say something.
Say some thanks.
So,
So,
so I'm really beginning to think, with the exception of the origins that I can't see.
alright.
So I'm beginning to think that the idea of iconic really goes straight to the realm of marketing.
I think in the modern day it starts.
Well, very definitely. But even if you go back in time, I think that you know, how did these representations of Christ become iconic? Probably when they were reproduced. You probably go back to the printing press. When these things were easily reproduced, and then you started finding them everywhere,
and
then
could spread them easily. You could take a little image, put it on a piece of paper, pass it out to a bunch of people, and have them spread it.
yes,
And would be considered a form of marketing.
marketability. It very definitely would.
I mean, we can see that even in the modern day. You're seeing it with like Norse symbolism, like the Thor's hammer is being seen worn around by a lot of people. Greek mythology has been used forever. I mean, look at Hermes being used as a flower runner for the better half of a century.
Sorry. Spam buttons. Sorry.
So it's only going to be funny for people who've read or know the story. That's the funny thing. We're dying.
Yeah, but I know, but. So,
Oh boy.
So,
There's a really good, if you haven't seen the story of Count of Monte Cristo, there's a really good movie made back in, I want to say, the early 2000s that had the original Albus Dumbledore as one of the...
Richard Harris played Abifaria.
Abifaria.
And,
Henry Cavill is in it, so tying back to the Superman thing, he's the son. He's the enemy kid's son.
Oh, is he really?
Yeah, that's Henry Cavill. That's a really young Henry Cavill.
Wow, I'm going to have to go back and relook at that. That
Yeah.
is the... who was the actor who played in The Passion of the Christ? That was...
Yeah. I can't remember his name off the top of my head.
That guy. Stars
That
with
guy.
it. Yeah.
That's a movie we should talk about.
The big problem with remakes of the Count of Monte Cristo, I shouldn't say remakes, films of the Count of Monte Cristo, is that the Count of Monte Cristo films try to incorporate a tremendous amount of action sequences in a book that does not have a lot of action involved. Because let's face
it's
it,
very much a revenge novel.
well, it is. It focuses on revenge, but we have an author who was paid by the word, and so he never said in one word what he could say in 10.
Yeah.
And so it's a very thick novel.
Very, very, 3 C's of thick.
3 C's of thick.
That's an internet joke that you're not going to get.
Yeah, I don't get that one at all.
I'll explain it later.
Aye.
So back to the topic.
Not a Family Channel thing, huh?
Could be.
All right,
Well, just a
later.
joke.
So back to the topic.
Back to the topic at hand.
Revered influential is the TARDIS and the scarf. Are they?
Ooh, yes. Dipping into my Whovian side. I would say the TARDIS is recognizable enough and marketable enough and has a certain amount of meaning behind it that it could be considered an icon.
Okay.
And iconic in the context of Doctor Who, whereas it's a symbol of Doctor Who, it's recognizable, a lot of people know about it despite not having seen the show.
Yes.
I wouldn't say it's super iconic. I don't think it's like legendarily iconic. I don't think it holds anywhere near as much weight as something like the Millennium Falcon, a lightsaber, a Pokeball. Like, I don't think it's quite as recognizable, but
It is. Doctor Who is a slightly more niche
yeah,
area of science fiction.
yes,
And but it has been around forever.
yeah, it's had a lengthy run. So yeah,
It is.
I would think that something like the TARDIS could be considered iconic.
A gorilla on the Empire State Building.
Yep.
Is it? And does the
well, now we're
current
getting into a
generation
concept.
recognize
And now we're getting
that?
into a concept. I think that's more of a concept rather than a specific like image, because you've seen the same like setting of a gorilla on the Empire State Building several times. You've seen it parodied. You've seen it in major motion pictures, both the original and in the modern day, except that we haven't seen it in the new iteration of Kong. We have a new iteration of Kong.
I haven't seen it.
Oh, you should. It's actually kind of enjoyable. As
Okay.
just a fun monster movie. It's really fun.
Okay.
But it all took place on Skull Island instead of...
Ah.
He never made it back. He
Okay.
kills Samuel L. Jackson, Tom Hiddleston barely escapes with his life, Brie Larson barely escapes with her life. It's got an actual decent cast for
being a monster movie.
For being a subpar
And now I
monster
don't
movie.
need to see it because I know.
Oh, I mean, it's still fun to watch a 60-foot tall gorilla beat the crap out of some monsters.
True.
It's fun. There's some really fun action in it.
Okay.
But is the image of a gorilla on the Empire State Building considered iconic?
I think that
Don't know.
I think that at one time it might have.
Yeah. I don't know if it has the same cultural relevancy nowadays.
Well, and so there is cultural relevancy a requirement for something to be iconic?
I think that could, being probably one of our last points, yeah, probably. I think
Nike makes commercials where they never mention their brand name. And
Yeah.
all they do is they put their swoosh at the bottom of the screen in the last 5 seconds of the commercial.
and they put their phrase "just do it."
Right. And that is that iconic? They've hit that level, but then if every company fails eventually. They can be around for 100 years, but eventually every company fails.
Sears.
Eventually Nike will fail. And
Yeah.
it will become a thing of the past.
Yep.
Will the Nike swoosh stop being iconic when that happens? Here's a question for you. Can something come into and then fall out of the definition of iconic? Or should iconic be reserved for things that have proven longevity? Such as the Eiffel Tower, from the quote that I read earlier. The depictions of Christ, I mean, let's face it, believe or not believe, most people know who
Everyone can
Christ is,
recognize
and
a
we're
crucifix, they can recognize
right,
a
2,000 years
Yep.
of religious symbolism.
Yep.
Shakespeare has been around for 500 years.
Yeah.
We are talking about serious longevity. So is that required for something to be iconic? And if we are going to avoid overusing a word to the point where it loses its significance, as was suggested by Shaughnessy Farrow, and my apologies if I'm hacking your name, the then maybe longevity should be one of the keys.
Interesting.
Now, of course, your mathematicians are going to say, okay, then define longevity.
Yeah.
But, I mean, but when was Superman invented?
Back in the early 1900s.
1930s, 1940s?
Yeah.
So we're talking
earlier.
about 70 to 80 years, where,
Yeah.
where we know this. Will it be around in another 70 or 80 years?
Yeah.
Every building eventually comes down.
Yeah.
The Empire State Building, temporary home of the gorilla. That's been around for a long time. Eventually, it will come down. After it comes down, it is a footnote in a history book.
Yeah.
There will be pictures of it, but it will lose its relevancy
Over the course of time.
Right. It used to be the symbol of New York City.
It's been overtaken by other. I mean, it still kind of is, given Empire State and Empire State Building. People still know it. If you say Empire State Building, people know what you're talking about.
Yes.
It's a very interesting point you bring up there. Longevity. I guess we'll have to see in the terms of stuff like a lightsaber, like a Pokeball.
Right.
Like the Superman symbol.
Will the lightsaber balance again?
Yes,
it will.
Woo! Woo! And of course, it doesn't. You don't have to necessarily have something iconic to be popular, to be good, to find success. Obviously, as we're seeing with other franchises, it's just something that I noticed. A lot of big franchises that have been around for a long time, that have had longevity, have something that's so unique and so only them that you won't find anywhere else, that it's now iconic.
And then of course, all of this hinges partly on the concept. If we're going to accept veneration as one of the things you need for worthy of respect, worthy of being held up as an example of something.
Yep.
And I think that that's going to knock a lot of things out, such as the lightsaber. When the concept of truth, justice, and the American way, yes, those are I would say that those are things worthy of veneration: truth, justice, and the American way.
Yeah.
But if you look at the social climate of the summer of 2020 and even going into the fall, the American way is not something that a good portion of our population seems to be venerating. There's a lot of and I'm not trying to go off into a political rant here, but the idea of something worthy of respect and being held up, that one's under debate right now.
Yeah.
And so I used to hate in college, especially in the 400 level classes, where we would have a debate such as, we'd spend 90 minutes talking about what is the definition of rhetoric, and 90 minutes later you walk out not knowing a whole hell of a lot more than you did when you started. And I think that we're going to fall into that trap right here, but we found this conversation so interesting because we couldn't come to an easy.
Couldn't. What makes something iconic?
Right.
Tell us what you think makes something iconic, because this is a conversation that can continue to go. My final thought is, if it is something that's fairly revolutionary or unique, nothing else has it, it's marketable, and it's instantly recognizable as that brand, franchise, story, whatever, that it can be considered iconic.
Okay.
Not that it will be forever, but that's mostly my final thought on it.
Well, I think that to define iconic, I have to separate marketability, marketing as a sales idea. Separate marketing from longevity.
Yeah.
right? Because marketing is very temporary. It for the most part, there are a few things that stand the test of time,
Yeah.
but we'll see.
We'll see. All right. Well, let us know your thoughts in the comments below. What makes something iconic, and tell us what you think falls into your definition.
And I hope you're enjoying these conversations as much as we enjoy having them, because this is something that just piques our interest, and we figured we'll share them with you and see.
Yep. And if you have any requests for topics like this, or movies, TV shows, games, books, any other topics you want us to talk about, drop those down there too.
Sure, you know, give us a title to read and consider.
All right. And with that, have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye-bye.